first we have Andrew Bosworth, aka Boz. Hey Boz, and I'll give you folks a detailed introduction about him, but he's head of Facebook AR/VR, and probably the person I've learned from the most when it comes to management and product. So Boz, we're gonna have lots of fun with you. And then we have somebody also incredibly special, Fiji Simo, the head of Facebook app, and probably also the person I've learned some of the most from over the last 10 years on product. We're going to have lots of fun with Fiji. Fiji, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. And then we have, the one and only Mark Zuckerberg, founder and CEO of Facebook. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey.
I used to be the headliner here.
So I would say Boz is the headliner. I know Mark can only stay a few minutes. So Mark, I want to ask you just about Facebook AR/VR and in just a second. But here's a question I want to get to you first, which I don't think I've ever gotten before. So up here, you have three people, Boz, Fiji, and Mark Andreessen, that you've worked with for over 10 years. What is your favorite / most surprising thing about working with each one of them?
Favorite and most frightening?
Either.
Same thing.
No. I don't know. Well, I mean, we'd be here for a while going through this. I mean, the thing that I appreciate about all of them, I think that they all have quite good taste in technology and products and things to build. And they're all prolific in terms of just being able to drive a ton of stuff and be able to get a ton of different things done, which I appreciate. And I don't know, they're also funny and have a good sense of humor, which I think is important because life is pretty serious.
I do think people underestimate the degree to which humor is important in our roles. Obviously, we take the serious stuff really seriously, but you just can't it's relentless. You can't keep doing it if you're not having fun.
Sorry, Boz, you have something?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I think we're all in a bit of shock here. Okay, so Mark, I know you have to run soon, but we're going to be spending the rest of the evening talking about AR and VR. I know VR is something you're really excited in. Just would be curious for for the thousands here and all the folks outside listening. What are your thoughts on the progress we're making in VR and what's missing and what you see coming over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think the progress is steady, and I'm proud of what the team is doing. It's there's a lot of foundational technologies to build. So just to back up, what augmented and virtual reality are really all about is delivering this sense of presence, right? This feeling like you're really there with another person or that you're in another place, right? The ability to teleport without actually having to travel or commute, and it's a special experience that no other computing platform can deliver, right? Phones don't do that. TVs and computers don't do that. You don't actually feel like you're in another place. You can watch a video or something, and your brain tries to kind of trick you and tell you that you're in another place, but you don't actually feel like you are. So the question is, what are all the technologies that help deliver that kind of sense of presence? And obviously, there's getting all the graphics and the visual systems to really kind of feel like you're immersed in a space. There's a long kind of path of technology that needs to get done to kind of get that to be as realistic as you would want on VR. And then AR obviously is a whole nother game on top of that, because you're not just you don't get to control the whole display. You're trying to put stuff into the physical world around you. And in order for AR to work, it has this additional challenge that VR doesn't, which is that, if people are going to be wearing this around during the day, it needs to fit into a pretty small form factor, like normal looking glasses. So now you have the challenge of delivering, all this technology to create this sense of presence, this kind of immersive experience, but doing it in, maybe a normal kind of thick rimmed pair of glasses, which means that you're basically taking a lot of technology that doesn't even exist yet and miniaturizing it down so that it fits in like, a few millimeters thick. And kind of that can work on a device all day long with battery. So it's, so this is a long kind of path that we're investing in to try to deliver this. And that's why we set up, Facebook Reality Labs. And, Boz, is one of the people who I've basically relied on to build a lot of the important stuff at Facebook over the years. I mean, you guys all probably know this, but, he was one of the first people on the team that built the original news feed. He's built a lot of our products, our early messaging work. When after our IPO, when people had questions about our business, I asked him to go run our ads team to get that sorted out. So, then when I basically, decided that this was going to be a huge focus for the next 10 years for the company, I was like, all right, who do I want to run this? So, Boz has built up this whole program, and we're really just taking a long-term approach towards it, towards the science of building all the foundational technologies. We have a product roadmap that goes out 4 or 5 years at a time in terms of the devices that we have a plan for what we're going to be shipping. And what I'd say in terms of how it's going is that Quest 2 has really been a breakout. A lot of the devices so far have gone well and have given kind of a glimpse of what the future is going to be. And Quest 2 is going to be, it's the first device that's really bringing VR to the mainstream. So I think that's exciting. People love it. The team achieved a really, it's a good form factor, but it's also affordable at $300. And developers are having a lot of success. I mean, Boz, what are we up to now? It's 60 titles that have made more than $1 million.
Yeah, and it's incredible because it's like a third of the apps in the store at this point, and there's quite a few titles that have made over 10 million now, and so that's one of the things we're trying to expand, getting more apps accessible. We just launched App Lab to do that. It's been incredible. I mean, one thing that's really interesting about this is it's fun to work with MarK on such a green field again. MarK and I obviously early on in Facebook did this all the time with newsfeed or things that didn't exist at the time, and then ads was a much more mature phase of the business, and this is just so out there. It's something completely different. It's kind of it feels like a return to the roots for me and working closely with MarK on it.
Yeah, so I guess one question I wanted to ask MarK was, any of you, what are your favorite games that you're playing now on the VR side of things?
Dude, MarK loves playing VR games. MarK, you should answer this. You play more than anybody I know.
Yeah, well, so I love the multiplayer games. I'm in it for the social experience. Not surprising. Although I have to say, the real long-term thing on VR and AR is, I kind of remember when I was in like middle school, science class, just sketching in my notebook these like experiences that I wanted to go build, and there were kind of these 3D immersive experiences. So a lot of what I'm excited about doing in VR and AR is actually building the platform where we can finally build some of these social and other experiences that I've literally been thinking about since I was a kid, since before I even started Facebook. But for this, I mean, my favorite games right now, I think it depends on what you're in the mood for. Beat Saber is obviously a classic. The multiplayer that the team added, I think, is quite good. I find Arizona Sunshine and like a little zombie apocalypse to be a relaxing way to unwind after a tough day of work. I think Onward is I think Dante and the team did a really nice job with that. It's like a military simulator, but there's no radar or anything, so you don't have it doesn't the only way that you know where the people on your team are or where the hostiles are is basically by communicating over radio with your team. So that I find a really fun one. I don't know, if you're not into shooters, I think Echo Arena is really good. It's basically like I don't know how many of you all read Ender's Game, but yeah. You had that. They had that game that they played where they kind of went into the zero gravity zone and kind of played, it was like almost like a 3D frisbee type game.
First game. It's so cool. That's great.
Yeah, so Echo VR I think is quite good. A lot of fun.
I go for more like puzzle. I like Cubism and Tetris Effect. I usually play the games a lot more when I'm like trying to chill out. You know, obviously we're all Zooming all day. I'm in VR a decent chunk of my day, as you can imagine. I got young kids, so when I get a minute, man, I love to just Tetris Effect is almost like a meditative experience for me. I really, it's kind of in my go-to. I keep coming back to it. And Pistol Whip, don't skip leg day.
Yeah. Also, I one plug for Keep Talking and No One Explodes, which is a great party game where you basically have one person in VR who is who basically they have all these puzzles, and you have to solve the puzzles within 5 minutes, or else the bomb goes off. And basically you have your friends who are not in VR in the room around you, who you basically have to describe the puzzles to, and they have to go online. And basically find the solution to the puzzles on the URL bombmanual.com or bombmanual.net. Every time I type that in, I feel like the FBI is going to come raid my house or something. But it's pretty hilarious because I mean you see like the person who's in VR is just like getting freaked out and like agitated at their friends who are taking too long to help them solve the puzzle, and then like the thing explodes and you're in there and it's like, oh, come on. But that's a pretty fun one if you only have one headset.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very good. Mark, not kidding, you do play quite a bit. That's a pretty comprehensive list. I have a kind of a different question. This is like a slight change in like the topics here. But you know, Mark, internally you talk a lot about remote work and how it's affected people and COVID, just how this last year has been. What can you share externally about just this year and what your thoughts are on just remote work and everyone working from home?
You know, it's in some ways it's gone better than I would have expected. You know, I've been impressed not only how the Facebook team, but I think probably how most of the industry just adapted overnight. But, you know, in some ways it's a weird experiment because, you know, a lot of people have kids at home and, you know, because everyone is working remotely, it's not quite the same as it's going to be when some people are back in the offices. So it's a little hard to extrapolate from where we are now.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that it's something that I've been optimistic about for a while. So I think this year has been a forcing function to make me want to just accelerate that. And, you know, I announced earlier in the year that I expect that, you know, by the end of this decade, we're probably going to be 50% remote as a company. You know, just because there's, I think, increasingly no reason for us to tie our recruiting and hiring to just a small number of cities where we have offices, especially when most people aren't even going into offices. It just kind of doesn't make sense right now. But, you know, long term, I think one of the things that I'm excited about with VR and AR is I do think that you're going to get this ability through the sense of presence. One of the things that's going to unlock is the ability to live basically wherever you want and be present in another place and really feel like you're there. And, you know, I've done some meetings in VR, you know, obviously a lot over Zoom and video conference. And, you know, what I can say is that the VR meetings, in a lot of ways, it's still a pretty basic experience, right? The avatars are more basic, you know, because you don't have eye tracking in the devices yet. That'll come.
They're getting there, Mark. They're getting there. I promise. We're working on it. They're getting there.
Yeah, but, you know, it's tough to do kind of full, you know, eye contact without having eye tracking in the devices. So that'll be, you know, a future device. But there were some things about it that are already better than what you could get on a VC call today. You know, so for example, spatial audio, right? It turns out that, you know, a lot of the ways that people process and remember things is, you know, you're sitting around in a circle or, you know, some room with people and you have a shared sense of space. Right? If I'm sitting next to Fiji, then that means Fiji's also sitting next to me and we kind of have that shared sense of space. And if she is sitting to my left and if she speaks, then that sound is coming to me from the left, not kind of straight on from a screen. And, you know, that all these things, right, kind of the audio and the kind of shared kind of visual experience is how we perceive and remember things. So, you know, one of the things that I found is when I do meetings in VR, I actually find it easier to remember kind of what happened in the discussion, you know, whereas all the Zoom calls and all that, it all it's a very kind of amorphous, undefined sense of space that's not natural for people, and I think it's actually kind of hard to process and remember, who said what, because where were they sitting? It's like, I don't know,
Yeah.
So I think that there is going to be something that's very powerful about remote presence in VR and AR, and that's going to, I think, not only be a more productive experience in a lot of ways, but it's going to unlock a lot of economic opportunity because people are going to be able to live wherever they want and increasingly work wherever they want and kind of teleport into places. And I'm also pretty optimistic about the impact on the climate, right? And reducing the amount of commuting and travel that people have to do. I think the advances in in electric cars and reducing emissions from all that are really great and exciting. But one of the things that I always tell our team is, it's like, all right, come on, it's 2021. It's easier to move bits around than atoms. So we should be teleporting more than we are actually physically transporting ourselves to different places as much as possible. And obviously the VR and AR type of stuff is going to enable that a lot more. So
I don't know if you remember this, Mark, but when you first started talking to me about, the Facebook Reality Labs work, this is like what I wrote. I was like, yeah, I mean, our cities are wildly inefficient. We pay, especially in the Bay Area, a ton of money to have real estate that's empty all day while we're at work. And our company pays a ton of money to have real estate that's empty all night while we're at home. And we're all fighting traffic for 2 hours a day to get between those places. It's wildly inefficient. And if you expand it to the global scale, think of all the talent. We know that we're lucky. We know that there's people out there who are as talented or more talented than we are, but they didn't have access to geographic mobility. They couldn't leave their support structures. They couldn't, or they were part of someone else's support structure. Raj Chetty's work at Stanford, now at Harvard, where since geographic mobility is down, economic mobility is down. And the only reason for that, I swear to God, is because humans are so wired for facial expressions and face-to-face contact that all that economic inefficiency on a global scale is actually justified today. And VR is the first technology I've seen that seems like it could close the gap. The push from the pandemic has made it clear that it's not the only one. Obviously, a high-res, portal 4K to 4K kind of connection is great for one-on-one. For multi-person chats, though, VR has the glimmer of a thing that could break through that morass and completely change how we think about cities and population density and a bunch of other things, and take more advantage of all the talent around the world and more evenly distribute the fruits of labor all around the world. I think it's just, that's literally why I took this job. Mark was asking me about it, and I was trying to think through why it was so important to me, and that's what I came up with.
Yeah. All right, guys. This is fun, but I did promise Priscilla that I was going to be on here for 5 minutes. So
thank you, Mark.
Got to listen to the boss. Got to listen to the boss. All right. We'll do another one of these another night that where we can cover this stuff in a bit more detail. But I hope you all have fun and good night.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you so
Thank you
much.
for showing up.
Thanks so much.
Can I just say I'm so glad Mark showed up, because Sriram did this thing where he said there's going to be a special guest when I told him I would crash Boss's interview, and everybody assumed it would be Mark, and that would have been the biggest disappointment if Mark didn't it was just me. So I'm so glad
Okay, can I respond to that? And I promise.
No, don't. You don't get to respond.
No,
it's all true. So just move on.
No, it's my show. I told Fiji this, and Fiji can back up. I actually told
This is Artie's show. Hold on, this is not your show. This is Artie's show.
Okay, Fiji, I wanted to ask you the similar-ish question. I think for FB app or for Facebook itself overall, what's been hard through the COVID time, through the last year of just remote work, and what have you seen?
So on remote work in particular, the thing that we still have to figure out is how we maintain culture through this time. And I think, everything that the guys have said on VR makes a ton of sense, and I think there's a lot of potential there. But the thing we haven't cracked yet is really how do we continue taking a culture that, we've very much developed in a world where we were all in the same buildings, and start adapting it to a world where we're going to have people all over the place. And I think we we haven't totally had to solve for that in the last year because we could rely on a lot of people being together and having a lot of shared culture already. But for the new people, it's been, I think, challenging, and we're still trying to find ways to do onboarding in a better way. And then you ask for the Facebook app, I think the thing that we've seen is just during this time, a ton of trends that we would have anticipated to take years have been just accelerating in the matter of months. And for us, it's been trends like, groups obviously becoming a lot bigger and people relying on these communities in times of crisis way more than they did in the past. Entertainment, and especially live entertainment, growing extremely fast because people are just craving escapism. And Buzz can talk about gaming as well, because that's definitely across both of our worlds, but we've seen that really take off. So a lot of these trends have just massively accelerated, and we've had to keep pace with that and really adapt our roadmaps really fast.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we've seen a lot of this too. It's just, the pace of which we've been able to adapt, I think, is like just quite something. And I think, just through the last year, people have had like very, very different experiences through the pandemic. Like I'm talking about just employees working, right? And I just feel like we've just been able to come together in ways that we could not have fathomed. To be able to still like deliver and do the best that we can. So it's really fun to go see that, and just you being able to lead a lot of that and see that from your viewpoint.
So, Boz, since our previous guest kind of got us on the VR AR topic, I want to get to some of the Facebook culture stuff and culture with both you and Fiji in the second half. I'm curious to get your take, right? What do you think about, just how do you see the next, 5 to 10 years of virtual reality, and also how do you see VR versus AR? Because I think that's also a really interesting discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think VR, we're at the elbow. It's fun for me to be at that point. I recognize it. I think those of us who've been in the industry a while have learned to recognize it. And you just see that nice curve shape. There's a long way to go. We're dealing with atoms, not bits, so you don't get those internet-like curves. But we're pretty dang good. And it's just, honestly, before Quest 2 launched, I knew it. We all knew it. That product is fun. It's a technical achievement to get it to the price that it is, and the dev community is now rallying around it. It's just all hitting really well. So VR for me feels poised to go mainstream, and I think one of the keys to that is not just gaming, but moving beyond gaming. You look at the growth now of Supernatural, of Fit XR. We're trying to support those with things like Oculus Move. If you look at like what MarK said, we're starting to play with these ideas of workspaces and look, pure social spaces are doing well too. VR chat, rec room. And so what you're seeing is after successfully kind of establishing itself in a niche, now it's getting the enthusiasm. We're on the upward spiral, not just of adoption, but of developer interest. And the roadmaps are exciting. We're at the very early stages. And so I can see all the pieces that are going to come into play over the next 4, 5, 6 years. They're going to make it even better, even more useful. So VR just feels like it's over the hump. Still a ton of work to do to actually push it up that hill, but it's on that trajectory now. AR is just the goddamn hardest thing. It's so hard. It's really going to be awesome. It's going to be everything we imagined. It's going to take a while. The references for AR, honestly, you have to go back, and I'm inspired by our chief scientist, Michael Abrash, on this. You have to go back to Xerox PARC, to MIT, to Berkeley. You have to go back to the Media Lab. You have to go back to these places where they were first trying to figure out how to connect man to machine, how to get intentions from my brain into the thing. And by the way, we ended on the keyboard and mouse. Those aren't great. Like, they're good, but like keyboard and mouse, they're relatively low bandwidth. And then you got to figure out how to get the information back into my brain, which is a screen right now. We've been on that paradigm since then, since the 60s. Phones are just the latest thing in that paradigm. So for me, I think AR is not just, okay, the technology is hard, sure. How do you get the photons to do what you want to do? Honestly,